long-range missile tests show off Taiwan's defensive capabilities as the president makes a visit to the country's navy. Taiwan's main opposition party, the KMT, stirs controversy with a speech to a conference in China saying Taiwan shouldn't push for independence. The country's borders may still be mostly closed, but relief for the travel industry may be in sight.
I'm Andrew Ryan, and today I'm in Changhua County with a sea bull. He has a very interesting job. He doesn't work in the fields, he works along the coastline. I'll tell you all about it in just a moment. Isn't that right?
A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Taiwan's President Tsai has met with members of the Navy to thank them for their work protecting the country. This comes after a period of sustained Chinese military activity around Taiwan, sparked by the visit of US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taipei earlier this month. Jaime Ocon has more.
A show of gratitude. Taiwan's President Tsai met with the country's Navy and expressed her thanks for their safeguarding the island.
过去这段时间，各位展现坚定不退缩的勇气，沉着应对，将平时扎实的演练的成果展现在面临实际威胁的应处，不仅守护住我们的海疆的安全，也维系了区域的和平与繁荣。这样的表现，我要给予各位最高的肯定和敬意。
Tsai's visit came on the same day that the country reported 51 Chinese warplanes and 6 ships operating near Taiwan. Some of those ships were spotted near Taiwan's missile test sites, where a state-run weapons maker is currently conducting long-range tests. The tests were scheduled before the presence of Chinese ships, as officials there are eager to test the country's capabilities.
紧张的程度其实是没有的，其实我们是反而比较兴奋的去完成我们这次的任务。这是新式武器，就是非常需要这种弹性的部署调整，那可以增加我们的战场存活率。
The island has been bolstering its combat readiness and enhancing its defense strategy as a response to increasing pressure from China. China's ruling Communist Party has vowed to bring Taiwan under its control and has threatened the use of military force if necessary.
非常缜密的驻搜，同时也会做非常认真的去判断跟分析。那么在经过判断分析了以后，我们会从不管是建军备战，或者是从训练上去做一个相对应的措施。
As Taiwan remains alert, officials here hope that new weapons tests and combat readiness training won't raise tensions in the region any further. As Naya Zhou and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
An official from Taiwan's main opposition party, the Kuomintang or KMT, has stirred controversy with a speech to a conference in Henan, central China. He said the party remains committed to an agreement struck in the 1990s as a basis for dialogue in which both sides agree Taiwan is part of China. Louise Watt reports.
This video of an official from Taiwan's main opposition party addressing a conference in China is causing controversy at home. He told a room full of Chinese officials and scholars that his party, the KMT, is committed to a 1992 consensus, which Beijing sets as a condition for any cross-strait talks. Both sides agreed that Taiwan and China are part of one country, but they've always differed on what that means. Politicians from Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, accuse Lin and the KMT of being a mouthpiece for China.
他们这些行为除了是背书中共对台的所有不正当的行为以外，也误导了国际，进入了一中的框架。
The KMT have stood up for Lin and said he wasn't saying anything new. Instead, they criticised the government. In the 6 years the DPP's been in power, tensions between China and Taiwan have soared.
民进党不但没有一点本事来处理这个问题，甚至于还来激化这样的一个问题。我们的目的难道不是为了让这个 战争的危机可以减缓，甚至于能够化解。
Beijing wants to see eventual unification of China and Taiwan. That's an unpopular view in Taiwan, particularly among younger voters. The KMT's pro-China policies have contributed to heavy defeats for the party in previous elections. The government agency tasked with handling relations with China said a survey this month found 76% of respondents oppose the idea that Taiwan is part of China.
期盼国民党应以台湾整体的利益为重，忠实表达台湾主流民意，强烈反对中共对台武力威吓，不应呼应中共的立场。
The latest controversy comes as campaigning starts for elections in Taiwan later this year. While they are local elections, both parties are aware they will also be judged on their attitudes to China. Karma Xu and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
2 Taiwanese suspected of human trafficking have been extradited from Thailand. They allegedly held fellow Taiwanese captive in Cambodia and plan to sell their victims to buyers in Myanmar. In transit in Bangkok, Thai airport officials flagged the group as suspicious, preventing them from continuing the journey. The victims were freed and sent home. But the suspects refused repatriation, along with a Taiwanese woman whose role as victim or perpetrator is unclear. She was also on the flight home with the suspects and will be questioned. 420 Taiwanese citizens are known to have fallen victim to human traffickers in Cambodia, with 374 of them still unaccounted for.
特别感谢泰国政府与我国政府的一个合作，并且大力的协助我驻泰代表处。那除了跨国合作之外，也是我国的一个跨部位合作的一个成功案例。
Taiwan is facing the prospect of its latest typhoon season in decades. The country has yet to see a single typhoon warning this year. Taiwan's typhoon season usually starts in July, but this year is the 3rd year in a row without a typhoon into August. In fact, even parts of Taiwan known for their rainfall, like the northern port city of Keelung, are unusually dry. If there are no typhoons by the end of the month, it will be the latest start to the season in 64 years. To explain Taiwan's erratic weather, reporter Bing Wang spoke to Timmy Peng, a meteorologist based in Taipei.
So we've been seeing droughts in the northern port city of Keelung. It's generally known as a very rainy city. So why has there been droughts in Keelung?
The major question is the no typhoon in July, from July to August. And sometimes from the May to July to August is our major typhoon season. So, but this year until now, no typhoon come to Taiwan until now. And the major reason is the typhoon. During the summertime, the monsoon flow is from the south. So right now, the Keelung, even in our summertime, it's very dry, no raining. Even we have some afternoon shower, but it's only in some area, not in the mountain. So during the summertime, the North Taiwan is a drought season compared to the winter time.
You were talking about typhoons, and if there won't be a typhoon warning by the end of August, that'll be the third consecutive year without a typhoon warning. Why is this happening?
In this year, probably will break the record because if we do not have any typhoon happen in August, and we will meet, there was no warning record in Taiwan. So maybe in our record, 100 years record in Taiwan. That means it's very serious things. During the summertime, the Pacific high pressure system dominate the weather. However, this year, the Pacific high is moved no more east, more west. For the water resources point of view, we need 2 to 3 typhoons every year, and that they will bring lots of the water to Taiwan.
Taiwan's Foxconn is best known as one of the main assemblers of Apple's iPhones. But now the chairman of the electronics manufacturing giant has outlined new emerging industries that will play a central role in the company's future plans. James Chater reports.
They produce the majority of the world's iPhones. But now, the chairman of Taiwanese manufacturing giant Foxconn has outlined the key new industries for the company's future.
我们目标是3大未来产业：电动车、数位健康以及机器人。用3个核心技术来支撑，来创造更大的价值。
Foxconn was founded in Taiwan in the 1970s and has become the world's largest contract manufacturer of electronics. Analysts say Foxconn's move toward emerging industries is designed to shore up the company's future.
譬如说，手机方面的产业消失或转型的部分，那么他们也为了避免这个情况发生，他们目前就是转向电动车的产业。所以在这个情况之下，红海未来的永续的发展应该是可期的。
Governments globally are promoting electric vehicles as a tool for combating climate change. And earlier this year, Taiwan's government said that by 2040, all cars sold in Taiwan will be powered by electricity or hydrogen. Evidence that the new direction Foxconn is taking may also prove lucrative. Chris Marr and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
Here in Taiwan, only residents can travel freely in and out of the country due to COVID rules. Others need to apply for special visas, while some restrictions have gradually been eased. Just 40,000 people are allowed to enter each week. But Taiwan's government is preparing to open its doors to international travellers again, as Eric reports.
After more than 2 years of pandemic travel restrictions, Taiwan's borders are still mostly closed. But at the opening ceremony for the Taipei Tourism Expo, President Tsai says her government is paving the way for the country to welcome visitors once again.
现在正是时候，为重新争取我们国际旅客来台湾做好准备。在兼顾经济和防疫之下，我已经请我们的行政院仔细地评估开放边境的时程表。
This announcement will help Taiwan's hard-hit international tourism industry. Operators have been calling on the government to ease border restrictions as travel demand is high.
期待了3年，我们旅行产业已经准备好了。只要我们的观光局指挥中心能够取消禁团令，让我们的入境防疫缩短到0+7。 整体的观光产业才会有机会恢复正常的运作模式。
The government has already rolled out initiatives to help domestic tourism. Hotel subsidies have been hugely popular. More than half the funds have been claimed in just 1 month, with almost 4 more months to go in the program.
到昨天为止，使用的房间数也超过100万房。那未来如果预算提前用罄的话，我们会至少在2周前让消费者还有业者能够知悉。
Hopefully, more international tourists will soon have the opportunity to enjoy what Taiwan has to offer. Klein Wong and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
A new report has found that critics of Beijing are being held in China's psychiatric hospitals against their will, sometimes for years. In the report titled Drugged and Detained, China's Psychiatric Prisons NGO Safeguard Defenders chronicles the experiences of 144 cases of activists, rights lawyers and petitioners. They were forced to undergo treatment at psychiatric hospitals and held without outside communication for months or even decades. Many were tied to their beds and sometimes subjected to electroshock therapy. The NGO says there could be thousands subject to psychiatric incarceration. This is despite a mental health law passed in 2012 that was supposed to clamp down on the practice. For more on this report, our reporter Ryan Kilpatrick spoke with Safeguard Defenders Research Director Dina Gardner.
In 2012, China introduced a new mental health law that was meant to clamp down on this practice. What has happened since then?
We found 144 separate cases between the years of 2015 and 2021, which showed unequivocally that the political persecution of political prisoners, putting them into psychiatric detention, is still carrying on nonetheless, even after this mental health law was introduced. But this is just a snapshot of the full picture. It's not 144 cases, it's probably thousands, if not tens of thousands of people being put into psychiatric detention all across China. You can see that I think it occurred in 21 provinces, municipalities, and regions. So psychiatric detentions are still alive and well.
In China, the security services actually run their own psychiatric hospitals, as you just said, the Ankang system, where they can put essentially anyone they want. Most of the cases you looked at weren't actually in these facilities. They were in ostensibly legitimate ones. So how do dissidents end up there nonetheless?
Police or government agents, they want to send CCP critics to these psychiatric hospitals, but it's easier for them to do it through civil commitment, not criminal commitment, because under criminal commitment, under the criminal procedure law, they need to have authorization from via a judicial review. Eventually, the case has to go to a judge. So we think that they are probably more likely using the civil commitment route, which means they just take the person to the hospital via whether it's bribery or whether it's coercion or whether it's just the hospital being complicit with the police. They take this patient in as a civil case of compulsory treatment.
And most of the cases you look at in this report weren't actually of activists, but petitioners, people with a very specific grievance they're trying to take to a higher level of government. Why is it that you think petitioners seem to be especially targeted by the system?
Generally, they're from the sort of very poor countryside, either villages or small towns or counties. They don't really have much resource or many supporters, so they're much easier targets. So for example, if you have a high profile human rights lawyer, when they're targeted off, the friends come out and can tweet and get international community concerned about their fate. But by and far, the majority of petitioners don't have access or knowledge about this system, so they can simply be disappeared.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he's deeply concerned about shelling near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant in Ukraine, the largest in Europe. Speaking at a summit in the Ukrainian city of Lviv, Guterres said any damage to the plant would be, quote, suicide. He met with President Volodymyr Zelensky and visiting Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. There's been heavy shelling around the Russian-held plant for weeks, which Russia and Ukraine blame one another for. The successful test launch of a Taiwan-made rocket in Pingdong last month has led the National Space Organization to create new ways to promote science education and the area of the launch site itself, as Ken Ning reports.
After observing the wind direction and atmospheric pressure, these elementary school students are ready to launch their water rocket. They are contestants taking part in the first ever national water rocket competition put on by the National Space Organization. This competition is taking place in the village of Xuhai in southern Taiwan's Pingdong, where last month the agency successfully test-launched Taiwan's first ever homemade rocket. They say that holding this competition for young people serves a dual purpose.
我们希望借由办这个活动，让小朋友呢从小呢就把科普融入他们的生活中，作为他的一个标志啊，让全国人民呢都讲到这个火箭就会想到的旭海。
For local officials, the launch of a rocket, water or otherwise, is an opportunity to encourage more people to visit the area.
我们乡里面来讲，我们当然希望它变成是一个能够促进我们观光产业的一个动力。
The team from Ananta Elementary School won the event for their water rocket design and presentation. The winners now get to go to Vietnam to take part in an international competition. Alex Chen and Ken Ning for TaiwanPlus.
It's hard for Taiwan to attract international visitors, especially during a pandemic. But one county has come up with a unique solution that involves oxen. Today in our series, Where's the County Chief Taking Us? We head to central Taiwan to learn more.
A hotel for trains? A temple made of glass?
and a date with a sea ox.
Yeah.
Today, we're headed to Changhua County on the west coast of Taiwan. Changhua is the smallest county on the main island of Taiwan, but it's home to one of the biggest Buddha statues in the whole country. And that's where we start our journey. Wait a minute, what happened to the statue? Some people in Changhua joke that the Buddha's been pixelated, but Changhua Magistrate Wang Huimei says they're just renovating it.
大佛它在整修，因为它经过了这个风吹雨打，那也多了一些这个伤痕，所以我们现在呢再把它好好的整理，专业的把它整理，让它慢慢又能够更加的绵延后面的100年、200年这样。因为我们明年刚好建县300年，那我们就是希望就是说，透过在建县300年的一个过程中，能够让大佛那换个这个回顾到它以前这个亮丽的一个面貌。
With the Buddha under wraps, County Magistrate Wang Huimei is taking us to a spot right next door, Guashan Village, a hot new destination for the TikTok generation.
这里以前也是闲置空间，我们引进很多的青年朋友进来到这边啊，透过青年他的一个创意，他的文创，然后把这个整个的地方给活化起来。
Today, it's lined with eateries and arts and crafts shops where you can try your hand at block printing.
1、2、3。
开讲。
Wow. Or creating handicrafts out of concrete, like these little planters. With a snap, we make jagged cracks that will allow tiny plants to grow through.
年轻人都很有创意，把原本这样不怎么样的这种水泥的东西，能够去把它变成这个跟艺术啦、跟这个植物啦、跟生活有关系，
变成文创。
对。
This creative energy takes me by surprise during my trip to Changhua, a place I've always known more for its tradition and history than for thinking outside of the box. But does Changhua have what it takes to become an international travel destination? The county chief has come prepared with some ideas.
彰化有3个，它是比较属于国际级的。那一个就是我们这个扇形车库，它是亚洲唯2的，那是一个活的火车的旅馆，在这么小的一个空间里面，可以同时容纳10几台这个火车在里面。
其实亚洲是只有2个，
对，一个在日本，一个就在我们的彰化。
哇，很特别。
第2个部分的话，我们的这个玻璃庙。 那玻璃庙它就用了7万多片的玻璃哦，做出来的一个庙宇，会依照我们这个太阳的东西的这个部分不一样的折射，那个庙的那个景观就是完全不一样哦。那这也是我们这个世界唯一的。那另外的话，我们还有一个叫做海牛采科哦，那这个部分呢，我们也列为无形的文化资产。
You good? I'm good. Her third recommendation sends me out on a mission. To meet an ox named Silly Bull.
加油!
He's my guide on a trip to the seashore to collect shellfish, the way they did it in the old days. There are only 7 or 8 of these oxen still in service, but Changhua is trying to revive the tradition. At the beach, we discover mud skippers and tiny crabs, but the highlight is what they call pearl oysters. They may not contain actual pearls, but they are prized for their unique, meaty texture. Mr. Hong says that comes from the way they are grown, horizontally, so they spend part of the day underwater and part steaming in the sun. You can barbecue them right on the beach if you like, but the best way to sample them is fresh out of the shell.
That is fresh oyster. That is probably the freshest oyster I've ever had, plucked straight from the ocean.
Now, don't get me wrong, I could spend the rest of the day here sampling oysters, but I've come to Changhua on a mission to travel the county in search of all the things that could make it an international travel destination.
If you had to choose just one place to bring a foreign visitor to Changhua, where would you bring them for the day?
这会得罪很多人呢。但是我还是有一点私心，因为我是鹿港人，我还是希望大家到鹿港啊。 鹿港它可以说是一个开放式的博物馆，它在台湾是第2个古老的一个城市，所以说它有很多古老的庙宇，然后它也有很多工艺师在这边哦，那保存下来的很多很传统的东西，那所以说鹿港可以说是台湾文化的一个缩影。那所以来到这边，你除了可以看庙宇、吃小吃，那还有我们的这个工匠他们的一些作品。那像我们国宝级的，在鹿港地区就有4个国宝。虽然是一个小镇，但是你可以在这边同时能够涉猎到很多在台湾很传统的东西。
Some of Lugang's proudest creations, like these traditional paper lanterns, have even captured the attention of the president, who's given them as gifts to international visitors. Perhaps the biggest surprise of all from my trip to Zhanghua is another one of the county's products, wine. Yes, as in the kind you make from grapes. There are 8 wineries in the county, and you can actually go and sit in an orchard to do a little wine tasting. And don't knock it before you've tried it. They even export some of these wines to Japan. As the sun dips below the horizon, I have one final stop in Zhanghua County, Hushen Temple, said to be the only glass building of its kind in the world. This temple is actually the perfect metaphor for Zhanghua County itself. From a distance, you'll see a traditional facade, but take one step closer and you'll see the glass walls, the glass ceiling, the beautiful, colorful lights inside, and you'll realize that they're using innovation, beckoning you to draw near and see everything that this temple in Zhanghua County has to offer.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Finally, staying on the oxen of Zhanghua, in central Taiwan, they were once helpers for oyster farmers. Now they've become a tourist attraction for visitors to get up close to the harvesting of oysters between the tides. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app. Stay safe and see you next time.